Hello, welcome to TRDR.tv. My name is Robert Sievers. Today I'm here with Anne-Marie Baiynd from thetradingbook.com. She was the mentor of Jeremy Newsome, and let's welcome her today. How are you doing today, Anne-Marie?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you for asking. So let's go ahead and let's get started on some of the questions. I read that you originally studied mathematics and behavioral statistics and that you had a career as a neuroscience researcher. So how did you make the transition from that to trader, a day trader?
Well, that's a circuitous route, and it certainly took about 30 years
Okay.
of motion between my education and where I am right now. And so I was a neuroscience researcher for a while, but you don't make a ton of money doing that. And so I wanted to stop eating ramen noodles. And so I actually joined a recruiting firm that taught me how to recruit people with the same skill sets as mine.
Okay.
And from there, I ended up owning a recruiting company. And after a while, you just get tired of doing things for a long time. I did that for 14 years or
Okay.
so.
Wow.
And then I was in a space where I could do really anything I wanted. And I saw technical trading. Somebody did something that showed me how it worked, and I found it to be incredibly exciting. And interestingly, it's sort of a culmination of everything that I've ever done. It's understanding people's psychology, neurobiology, mathematics, statistics, all rolled into one magnificent occupation I call trading.
So it's a nice amalgamation kind of
It
everything
really
that yeah,
is.
everything that you've
That's
learned and put together, and so you kind of got to throw it all into one profession. So I
exactly.
do understand a little bit kind of how that changed over the years. Yeah, so I was gonna ask. I read also that you were an entrepreneur and that you started obviously the recruiting company. Were there any other companies that you started which you think really helped you to prepare for the trader that you are today, or would there be any sort of specific jobs or professions that you had that really taught you certain, say, disciplines or psychology in trading that, yeah, that really helps you out today, basically?
That's a good question. And really, the answer is from each thing that I did, from the researcher, from really being a mathematician, because when you become a mathematician, you know, I'm I'm going to die a mathematician, right? I'm still a mathematician. And so all of that of how to look at information and to filter out noise comes from training in mathematics and statistics and just in general learning how to use what's important and lay aside what is not in order to get where you're going. And then spending 14 years in recruiting and running a recruiting company, really you are in the business of understanding how people make decisions, what sways them in one way or another, and how to work with them in order to help them get to decisions that they are going to be pleased with ultimately, right? Because you do sort of guarantee your work when you're in that kind of business. And
Of course.
so all of that together took me to a space where the market is. And the market, a lot of times people think, wow, because you're a technical trader, you don't think about fundamental undercurrents. And fundamental undercurrents are really very important. But at the end of the day, it's what are the people doing? How are they making decisions? And interestingly enough, you can see that show up on the candlesticks if you know what you're looking for, as opposed to stepping into a space where you just are looking at data. A lot of people who think technical trading is very technical, they fail to understand that the data represents real human decisions. And
Yeah.
those decisions can really play out. You can almost anticipate, based on what you know about the mob, and the way the mob rules in a space, right? Psychology says
Mob
it's
mentality.
very difficult, exactly.
Yeah.
Psychology says it's very, very difficult to anticipate what an individual can do But if you put them in a crowd, that is much more simplistic to see where it is that they're going to go. And that mob and crowd mentality really works when you're using that element to understand trading in the market technically.
Okay. Well, I think I got an idea now of where all of your experience comes from and kind of how you put it all together in order to become more of a successful day trader and to kind of understand where the real where all the data that's being interpreted really comes from. I bet you, I'm sure, really helps you out. So that's understandable. Thank you for sharing with that with us. Um, what would you say was the one thing that really sort of helped you to become an excellent day trader? I mean, I read that you had a couple mentors, that you read endlessly. You know, I think that you said on your bio that there was some like 20-hour reading sessions of just studying the market conditions and all of the different changes. So what would you say, if you had to pick one of them, what would you say was the, the piece or the piece of the puzzle that really helped you out the most to become a successful day trader, and also in addition to that have the ability to kind of teach and spread that information?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that backwards,
Okay.
but last and then moving to the first question.
Okay.
My ability to communicate comes from the fact that I think about things very simplistically.
Hmm.
And for us to uh, take something in and really cement it into our own decisioning spaces, we must understand it at a very basic level, a level that affects us viscerally in our solar plexus, where we go, yes, that makes sense. I believe that, so I'm going to make my decisions follow through on that. And so my ability to teach comes from my strength as a communicator in terms of getting those basic simplistic elements out to the individual where they understand that it's something that's one, two, three, and then I make my decision. And if I can't make my decision on that basic premise, then things are too complex for me to look at. And so I must step back, wait for the environment to change and become more simplistic, and then I can anticipate the motion better, which will increase my probability.
Okay.
So what got me to that space was really understanding that you can't look at the market as a series of signals. You have to look at it holistically. And I came to understand that by looking at a lot of different things that people were saying. Oh, when this happens, then this happens. When this happens, and this happens. When this happens, and this happens. And I realized that a lot of it was contradictory. And so when something is contradictory, it can't be used as an appropriate probabilistic measure. Not to get all math nerdy on you, but we really are playing the probabilities.
Yeah.
What's the probability that this happens in this space? And so rather than looking for a vast array of complex signals that are working together, because I don't have that computing power at my disposal, I just have my one little mind. And so with that, I have to say, all right, where are my probabilities the highest? And so in order for me to even get to that space, I had to realize that basically everything that I was looking at was noise, just like we were talking about in the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's noise, and you have to look at the base data that says, where is this highly correlated? And so I really just started from scratch. And I said, here was the first thing I thought, okay, you have no idea what you're doing. And then after that, I said, all right, let's start from nothing and look at the base candlesticks. And I started, and it took me about 8 months of just starting from ground zero and moving right back up into something that is rhythmically consistent, that I can watch shift to make that happen. And really, it really was at one point where I said, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. You think you understand something that you don't. And so onboard that, live with it, realize that it's fact, and then move on. And so that was a very difficult space for me because I usually was a person that really caught things very quickly. It was very rare that I would get things wrong. And so having to look at myself and go, you're absolutely wrong. You have no idea what you're doing. You need to start over. It was a very difficult psychological space for me, but it was the beginning of the genesis of understanding simple systems that are at work in the market that you can, as an individual, trade through and to from target to target with great reliability. But it really did take that point of saying, hey, you've got to start from nothing and just look for correlation and probability, and that's all there is.
Okay, so I understand. It's you definitely I think had to. I don't know if check your ego is necessarily
Oh, absolutely.
the right
Perfect.
term, but I mean I can imagine that after being a neuroscience researcher, that you are obviously intellectual, and so to have to start over almost at the base where you realize that you don't necessarily understand the things that you're looking at. You understand on a basic level, but you don't understand the why or the how questions, which are the most important ones. So I appreciate it, and I think that that is obviously a very important thing for a lot of intelligent people who first start trading, is that they realize that, pardon my French, but they're going to get their butts kicked, in
Yeah.
the first couple days. It's just the first couple weeks, first couple months. Those first trades are really is what's going to teach you, what what you don't know, and then where to go from there. So,
Yes.
so I appreciate that. And then, is that one of the things that you one of the first things that you teach people necessarily is, well, when, for example, say that you receive a student who is just starting out. They have a very basic understanding of the stock market. They understand, like the bid price, ask price, yada yada yada, all this kind of stuff, the very basics. What would be the first step for you to get that person to becoming a day trader of your level?
Interestingly, those are the best kinds of students, the
Okay.
ones that come in with very little emotional capital damage. There are two kinds of capitals that we work with. We work with physical capital
Yeah.
and we work with emotional capital. And the best student is the one who has very limited emotional capital damage,
Okay.
but that is usually rare. Most folks, by the time they end up coming, see, it's funny because there's no barrier to entry in the market. Basically, if you've got cash and you can open up an account, you can do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And so that lack of barrier to entry allows you to step into an arena where you have a necessary group of skill sets, required group of skill sets that you don't have because somehow there's still this thing that it's sort of gambling. And if you're lucky, you're going to make a bunch of money in the market. And so there's this giant misnomer about how somebody stays consistently, actively strong in the market. They don't think there's a ton of skill involved somehow. I mean, if you ask them, they might go, no, of course there is. But they don't act like there is because they'll go out and do whatever they think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that's going up. I'm going to buy that. And that's not a skill event right there. That's a guess event. And so
Of
the
course.
first thing I'll do with a student is share with them that the market is a breathing, living mechanism that we get to see in pictures. And so our job becomes interpretation. All of a sudden, we're looking at a bunch of Monets, trying to figure out where the dots are pulling us together. And right, where's the human sitting in this picture?
Yeah.
And so that's really the first thing for them to look at the market as just an ebb and flow of buyers and sellers that are warring around particular price points. And sometimes a group's going to win and later they're going to get pushed back. It's really war. It's front lines getting advanced and retracted all over the place. And so just to paint that picture of something outside of a technical motion that says, okay, this is moving up because, or anything like that. It's not to look at the because, it's just to watch the crowd move. And when you watch the crowd move, then you can anticipate who has strength in a particular space. It's just like watching a groundswell. The more the more common student is the one who's got a lot of emotional capital damage. And so they become very risk averse, and their whole body is filled with all these fear based events that interfere with your ability to make logical decisions. And so that involves a very big psychological element as a coach. And because many people don't realize they have that damage sitting in there, they think, hey, I just got to think this through. And really, all the behavioral science today tells us that we not only think with our minds, we think with our bodies, and we get all these leftover events that are just sitting in there. And so there's normally a lot to clean up on top of that. But studying from that perspective, you just sort of say, hey, listen, let's just look at this without anything fancy. Let's just look at a moving average, and then let's
It looks
just
like
look at a
we're having a
vaccine.
couple of problems. Hold on with the connection. I'm not sure quite what's happening, if it's on my side or your end, but it's just getting a little bit blurry. Uh, can I hear you speak for 1 second? It just
Yes, sure,
it looks a
sure.
little bit crackly. Uh, do you want to just try to reconnect for a second? I
Yeah,
apologize. Yeah,
sure.
we'll just redo that 1 second, and I will call you back in just a moment.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, can I hear you?
Little better?
Yeah, that's much better. Awesome. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it must have
No
been a
worries.
connection problem on
Yeah,
my side.
no worries. It happens sometimes when I do stuff across the pond.
Yeah, exactly. We got a little bit of distance between the two of us, so
Yeah, just a little.
it's understandable. Exactly. So let's see. Yeah, was I apologize for cutting you off. Was there a couple other things that you wanted to
No,
say?
no, 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 that's it.
Okay. Um, let's go ahead and let's stick with some of the educational parts of it because from what I understand reading your bio and talking with you before that is one of your I mean you do love trading on the stock market. You do love obviously the mathematical parts of it and the psychological parts of it, but also education is very important to you. It's one of the parts that you really enjoy doing and passing that information on to your students and to other people. So let's go ahead and let's stick with that subject for a little bit. My question was, how many students would you say that you, on average, teach per month? So I'm not sure if you have different levels of students that you do like a more personal sort of teaching with, or if you just have like a general sort of student. But on a personal basis, how many students would you say that you have per month?
Okay, so there are different types of ways that you can get education.
Hmm.
For me, the first is from S&B Capital.
Hmm.
Um, uh, S&B Capital has a formalized trading program. They have many excellent programs, of course, so
Okay.
mine is one of them. And you can have that on demand at your own pace.
Okay.
And that is the sort of thing. It's self-directed. You can email me anytime after you take it. You can go, hey, I have this question. I try to make myself available to folks. I'm not in the business of marketing, and that makes me available, right?
Okay.
If
Yeah.
if I if I were in that huge business, it would make availability a little bit more difficult. And so I try to make myself available. The second thing that I have is a daily trading room for continuing students. And that is every single day we get online and we trade live
Okay.
together. We look at the market, we assess where things are going, we set targets, we estimate, and then we act when the triggers come. And we do that every single day that the market is open and I am not traveling. Sometimes I am traveling.
Gotcha.
And then the third kind is a private student event, and I only take 3 of those a quarter
Okay. Wow.
because I'm very committed to helping the student get to where it is that they're going. I'm not in any kind of space where I'm not focused on the student directly. So my choice is to keep those pockets small, to keep those groups small, so that they really are getting the attention that they deserve, because I am fortunate enough to make my money in the market. And so I train and trade with others and help others because It's a love of mine. I feel like a lot of people don't have what they need, and it's fulfilling to do that. Otherwise, I'm just moving money around all day for a living, and it loses a little bit of its appeal.
I understand. I mean, that seems like something that you and Jeremy kind of had in common, actually, because
Yeah.
I know that he really enjoyed that aspect of trading as well. It was actually doing the teaching aspect of it as well. So that's cool for me to kind of see that link between the two of you guys. So I appreciate that. Um, how long does it typically take your students to become profitable? So you said, for example, that your favorite type of student was the one from the very beginning. So let's use that as the example. How long on average would you say it takes for them to become a good enough trader where they are profitable, or where you can kind of send them on their own a little bit? Obviously, they'll probably still come back to you for questions every now and then because you seem like a good teacher, but on average.
You know, here's the thing about that average.
Hmm.
It's very varied depending on the student, and the measure to me, the measure of success is consistency.
Okay.
And so, what happens to students many times is they get the information, they leave, and they do well for a time, and then they forget the
Mm.
basics of the mechanical motion. It's very easy to believe that once you get to making very good decisions, that all of a sudden it's about you
Yeah.
and you're the bomb. But indeed, it's not, right? If there's one place that consistently tells you to check your ego at the door to keep you consistent is the market.
Yeah.
And as long as you realize that the market is in complete control and you are just navigating in your little kayak, you're going to be good. And so the techniques that I share with can make people take good trades very, very quickly. But it's the measure of learning to follow rules consistently over time, and then learning which of those rules are capable of being bent and can move and flow with the different spaces. So, somebody can come in, take a space. I've had people reach out to me and say, listen, I just read your two books, which you can find on Amazon, but I read your two books and it's completely changed my career. They spend no time with me individually. They just went, bought the books or did the training or whatever, and I'll hear from them 6 months, a year later, and they'll say, you know what, you've really changed the way I look at the market. I'm much more controlled. I'm much more specific about where I enter. And that really is what I try to hammer in. Take control where you have control. Once you get into the market space and you enter a position, you really lose a level of objectivity that you only possess before you enter. After you enter, there's an element of objectivity that leaves you because you become personally invested. So the question is, knowing that that happens, how much homework can I do ahead of time in order to sort of compensate for that lack of objectivity that sort of
Okay.
slips into my mindset at the time? So ultimately, the approach that I have is very straightforward, very simplistic. It's just people try to get that a little bit muddy over time. They sort of misstep over time, but it's very, very simple. 30 days, and people are responding back and saying, hey, listen, this is a good trade. I use this, I use this, I use this. The measure of success to me is, can you do it for 2 years? Can you do it
Yeah.
for 10 years? Can you do it for 15 years and keep yourself from going off the rails?
I understand. So it's a really difficult question to answer then because it's such a
Absolutely.
long-term scale that you're
Yeah.
really looking at that
Yeah.
of course you can be profitable for 1 year in a bull market, but then if you're not doing any sort of shorting or anything like that, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble once it gets into a more bearish market,
Yeah.
similar to what's happening right now in 2016.
Yeah.
So I understand. And just talking a little bit about your books, the name of the first one I think is the trading book, A Complete Solution
Yes.
to Mastering Technical Systems and Trading Psychology. The second
Yes.
of which is the Trading Book Course, a practical guide to profiting with technical analysis. Um, would you recommend those books for beginners, for intermediate? Would you say one book is more, a little bit more advanced than the other one? I didn't necessarily have the chance to read deeply into the books and what they covered, but I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit of a description.
The second book is more of an example space of trades, very specific trades that I went into that went well and then didn't go well, and sort of the breakdown of those very specific elements.
Okay.
And so if you are an example-based person and you like watching examples, then that is going to be an ideal space for you. The first book, I felt that it was very straightforward. I did get a few folks that said, hey, you know what, I think you should really label that book as intermediate rather than something from a beginner.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's some things that you need to know. You need to know what a moving average is. You need to know how candlesticks are built. But outside of that, there really isn't anything else that you need to know from that perspective. So I would say if you know a little bit about the market, then the first book is really ideal. And if you want practice and watching a trade unfold, then that would be the second one
Okay.
that you would choose. Yeah.
Okay, understandable. And I was also looking at your YouTube account, and there
Yeah.
is a lot of live trading up there. I mean, it looks like you have just over the last couple of years, even lots of live trades. Some of them like live trading sessions, 45 minutes long, hour long. So if some of our users want to get an idea of kind of how you're trading, I mean, I'd recommend to check out some of your YouTube videos and to get a little idea of kind of what your strategy is and kind of how it gets implemented. In addition to that, I also saw something on your website called the Trading Vault. Do you think you
Yes.
could explain that a little bit to me? I was a little bit
Yeah, the
unsure of what
Trading
that entailed.
Vault. The Trading Vault is a study program that SMB Capital has.
Okay.
And so that link will actually send you to SMB, and that is a recording of some teaching that I did with their traders in New York.
Oh,
And so
okay.
they packaged that together in a very, very nice, very high powered, high impact program for folks who really are ready to jump into that space. So that really is a that really is an excellent that's an excellent program that just jumps right into the heart of how it is that you can really assess technical movement properly. I'm really proud of that.
Okay. Awesome. Um, in addition to that, let's see. How can your viewers find out? How can our viewers find you, or the part of the curriculum which best matches their experience level? So when they
Okay.
go to your site, how would you recommend that people find the right courses or the right features for them?
Okay. You know, if you, wow, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
Um, if people are really, it really depends what it is that you're looking for. If you really want to learn how to trade and you have um, a basic understanding of the market, the trading vault, if you just want education, to give yourself your own basis where you can do everything yourself, the trading vault is great for you.
Okay.
If you're at the point where you say, listen, I understand a few things, but I've got some spaces where I really want personal attention, then you send me an email and you can talk to me about what kind of scheduling might be available in the future, because I do only take 3 students a quarter. So you can talk to me about that. The next thing is the live trading room. Really, you get in there, and what the number one thing is, I do it every single day. It's how to assess a complete market motion. So we will look at the weekly charts, the daily charts, the 4-hour charts, and we'll telescope in to what the day trading event is. But it's always a big picture every single day, very anatomically functionally, structurally similar of if you're going to assess where the buy and sell points are on a chart, this is how you do it every single day. And so that repetition event becomes a very good learning space for traders. A lot of people like to come in because they get to see what I'm looking at. And I don't look at what everybody else is looking at. I just look at what I'm looking at and I share with them what I'm looking at to trade. Where I think the buy points are for me to trade, they can do whatever they want to with it. I will tell them where it is that I'm buying, show them where it is that I'm selling, and if that's something that people like, then that's an opportunity for them. And then, if you're at your own pace, then you choose the on demand, like the trading vault, or you buy the books, or people learn differently.
Of course, of
Really,
course.
some of us are very visual, we are example based, and some of us like to be off by ourselves without any kind of interruption. So we can get both of those.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, that was a tough question and with a bunch of different facets of the answer. So I appreciate that. Let's see. It seems to me that, like obviously we were talking about it before, that you really, really love the teaching aspect of it. What would you say is one of your favorites? Why would you say that you love the teaching aspect of it so much? I mean, does it
You
have to
know,
do
it's
with?
it's great to see somebody get it. It is.
Yeah. I mean, because I'd
It's
imagine that it comes with a lot of frustration,
yeah.
exchanging or trading on the stock market. So once you actually see somebody start to make a little bit of money and be able to kind of support themselves and their family, I
It's
could
so
imagine that it's pretty
rewarding. It
rewarding.
is.
Exactly.
For a person like me that I'm really fueled by that. It is beautiful to see them get it. I've got hundreds of emails from people going, you know what? I'm so grateful and I really I get it and I'm thank you. And that means a lot to me. I know what it was like to struggle in the market. I struggled mightily. I was an abysmal trader. I was not a natural. And to get up over that hump and know how it feels to fail time after time after time after time, and then get somebody to the space where that is no longer their experience, it is hugely rewarding for me. Hugely rewarding.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Let's. I think that's really important to know for all of our users, just to see how passionate you really are about the education process. And so I think that's one of the things that I always look for in a teacher. And so I think that hopefully our users do the same thing. I just have two last questions, and then I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
My second to last question is a simple one, I guess. What kind of assets, financial assets, do you typically end up trading and teaching?
Well, the great thing is the system that I teach is so um, grounded in everything that the market is that it works on any instrument in any time frame across any market across the world.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not gimmicky. It's based on the core elements of what makes people buy and sell and where they buy and sell, and we're all made of the same dirt. And so because of that, irrespective of any kind of algorithmic motion, which we also look at very carefully, it is all the same. For me, I enjoy the futures market because of the leverage event.
Okay.
Of course, if you're a very bad trader, then leverage like that is horrifying.
Yeah,
But
you're gonna get into
once
some
you get to
trouble.
be, yeah, once you get to be a good trader, the leverage is very inviting. So I absolutely love the futures market.
Okay.
But I also look at high betas, things that, because we do intraday trade, or we'll trade for pockets of 2 to 3 days at a time, 2 to 5 days at a time, something like that. We'll look for things that move rapidly, that have big expansion spaces. They have a high beta relative to market motion. And so, of course, there's some of those in the S&P, and there are some of those in the NASDAQ, and those primarily are there. But the key event is, for me, you get to see how I look at the futures market, knowing that it's a very dangerous place And knowing that because it's a dangerous space, that you have to be very precise about what it is that you're doing. And once you come into the trading room and you look and you go, oh, she's waiting for this to happen. She's looking for this to happen. And when that happens, that's going to give us a much higher probability of follow through from this space. And so really, because it's a system that morphs across all instruments and time frames and markets, fluid ones, liquid ones, illiquid ones give a little bit of trouble only because of the bid ask and that sort of thing. But other than that, that really is what I do. But what I do can be morphed into any space at all, which is why the trading room is so powerful.
Yeah, that sounds like it's probably pretty interesting then if you are doing a little bit of everything. And I mean, I can imagine just as you're learning, you kind of upgrade to a different financial asset almost, like you
Yeah,
start.
what you can manage.
Yeah,
There's,
exactly, of
there's
course.
your risk. Yeah.
Of
And
course.
if people want to look at the futures, I always tell them to look at the micro euro because that is a futures contract that has a very limited exposure event, but it still works exactly the way that any future space would work and really any other space would work in terms of where we move from target to target. And so if you want an introduction to the future space, but you don't want to be freaked out by the leverage,
Yeah,
then the micro 6E is a great place to
micro
start.
60. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then my last question for today. Um, I saw that you have basically almost like four different levels of membership. So that would be the free membership, the silver membership, the gold membership, and the platinum. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the free one entails? Just because I know that a lot of people, I'm sure, when they're first beginning to want to have the education, that's probably the one that they opt for so that they can get an idea. So do you think you could give us a little bit of an idea of what that entails?
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
absolutely. The free membership will give you a morning market report that tells you what the broad markets are setting up to do. It also tells you a little bit about what oil is going to do because that's my primary trading vehicle. I
Okay.
do trade oil more than anything else. And so it gives you a flavor of what the market looks like, whether it's going to have a positive or negative slant on the day, or if it's neutral, or where it is that it might move. Then there are opportunities to come into free webinars that I have once in a while for folks, and then one or two free trade ideas here and there. And that's basically what the free membership will do. The silver membership allows you to take a look at the portfolios that I am running for myself. I have a silver level portfolio and a
Okay.
gold level portfolio, and it's where I buy and where I sell. And I put notices about where my buy points and sell points are before I do it, so
Okay.
people can choose to follow along if they determine that that's what they want to do. The gold level has all of the silver and all of the free stuff together. And right now, the gold is being automatically upgraded to platinum. So people who
Wow.
get into
Okay.
gold actually get into the platinum level. And the gold level gives you additional choices, gets you looking at the other portfolio that I have. And those, between the silver and the gold portfolio, is just the size of the basic instrument
Okay.
share price that we're trading. Some of them are a little bigger. For the silver portfolio, the stocks are rarely more than $50, and the options are 250 or less.
Okay.
And for the gold, they're a little bit higher. They usually stop at about $6 for the option and maybe, 150 for the stock. Sometimes we look at Tesla or whatever, but
Yeah.
those sorts of things. And then, of course, the platinum membership is the live trading room that gives you the most active exchange in terms of learning. The platinum membership, which the gold membership is automatically being upgraded to that right now, it just tells you how to look at the market, and it reinforces the exact same mechanics every single day. So you can watch it work. And I think the reason that that membership is so popular is because people really do see the proof in the pudding
Yeah.
every single day. It puts my feet to the fire every day, which
Yeah.
is how I like it.
Of
I
course.
really like that.
No, I think the live trading room is definitely an important aspect, an important feature to really kind of seal the deal on the education, you know, so that you can really see how a lot of it gets applied by you as opposed to me doing the education, learning all these things and trying to apply it in a way that's most of the time just going to frustrate me, you know, because it's I have trouble kind of applying all the things that we've learned at the same time. So it's I mean, I definitely recommend checking out the live trading room if our users get the chance. But that is all the time that we have today, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for joining us. That was Anne-Marie Baiynd with thetradingroom.com. So I highly recommend that you get the time and you go check out her website. And if you don't have the chance to do that, check out some of her YouTube channel. See some of the content she has up there. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. Have a nice day and good luck with your trading tomorrow.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you very much for joining us on TRDR.tv. That was Anne-Marie Baiynd from thetradingroom.com. I wish you the best of luck with all your future trades. Please go ahead and check out TRDR.tv over the next couple weeks and have a nice day.